Is your goal to get an athletic scholarship? Do you see yourself playing at the professional ranks one day? Do you envision getting a gold medal at the next Olympics? Well, to do that requires an everyday commitment. You have to have an edge. And that's what I'm talking to you about today, gaining your edge. Check out my course, The Edge. This is going to give you all the principles and social dynamics to guide you to success. Check out my course, The Edge. The link is on the homepage of sportsmastery.com. Welcome to the new year, ladies and gentlemen. It's 2020. We're starting this year off the right way. I have the wonderful Angela Lewis coming on the podcast today. She's going to be discussing the college recruiting process, the female presence in sports, and helping young athletes gain confidence. And she'll also close out with time management. So if you're a student athlete, this is the place to be. If you're a sports parent, this is the place to be right here, right now, listening to this episode. And what you should know about Angela is that to date, she has published 3 books. The Game-Changing Assist, 6 Simple Ways to Choose Success. She also has the Game-Changing Assist Workbook and Post Moves, the Female Athlete's Guide to Dominate Life After College, which focuses on providing a roadmap for young women to accomplish their goals. A recognized leader, Angela was awarded the Robin Roberts Sports Communication Award, honored by Black Girls Rock St. Louis. In addition, she's been called upon regularly to speak at events such as Nike Elite 100 Camp, the National Youth Summit on Economics, Justice, and Education. Her most recent speaking engagement was to student athletes at the Florida State University. Welcome to the first episode of 2020.
Absolutely. So I am from St. Louis, Missouri, a woman from the Midwest, and I played college basketball at St. Louis University, NCAA Division I. I received a full athletic scholarship, but I was one of the most unlikely people early on. You know, I was 5'8" in the 5th grade. I'm 6'1" now, 6'1" inches tall. I've been this since I was 12. Really uncomfortable in my own skin, a passive kid. I was the kid who, like, they have to force to be aggressive because I wasn't, naturally that way. And so basketball became this place where I felt comfortable, right? It was like this place where I found a tribe and where I could stand a little bit taller without, hunching over like most young women do. And after I played college ball, got a scholarship there, scored over 1,000 points, over 500 rebounds. I got the opportunity to play in Germany, which again was this eye-opening experience in terms of cultural exchange and being immersed in another culture, not knowing the language. I have tons of stories that we could get into about that experience. And then from there, I came back and started coaching and coached at a number of different places. Webster University, Southeast Missouri State, Marquette University, was director of ops there, and coached professionally with the St. Louis Surge. I've published multiple books for young people who are athletes. And
Right. And so, normally I wait to do this at the end, but we got a hell of a guest on, y'all. Tell us about your books right now.
Yes, sure. So the first book is called The Game-Changing Assist, 6 Simple Ways to Choose Success. And this book is all about teaching young people, not teaching them, but giving them a framework and some principles to stand on for how to live their life. Oftentimes we ask young people, what do you want to be, but not asking them the principles that they're going to stand on to be whatever it is they want for their life. So part of it is about having a vision, making sure you're listening to the right voices, making sure your values align with that vision. You can say you want something, but if you don't know what it takes to get there, then you're just running around, right? So values, reaching a point of victory, volunteering, and making it through the valley. How do you get through those difficult times? So it's really giving them a framework and some principles to guide their life more so than a roadmap.
So without you, if you was just like, we on the airway, we don't know who's listening. It could be a 15-year-old girl listening to this when it streams. Without knowing her, and ever talking to her, what are three principles that you would tell a young woman that she should always stand on? That whether it's life, sports, school, or whatever.
The first thing applies to everything. Honor your word. Your word is all you got. It's one of the simplest principles, but really hard in our day and age to keep, because so much of what we do is based on how we feel. So we have to get past how we feel and stand on your word. That's the first thing. The second thing is bounce back quickly. You have to know whatever it is you're facing, somebody's already been through it. You know, they're saying there's nothing new under the sun. It's real. So whether it's a hard test, a difficult game, know that someone's gone through it. And because of that, you can make it through. That's the second thing. And then the third thing I would say is serve. Be good to people. You don't know why people cross your path, how they're going to show back up. So serve other people, and your life will be gifted with opportunities that you could have never planned for. Honor your word. So honor your word, be good to people.
Angela, I know you're in a particular niche where you're speaking to, is it mostly female audiences, and you're advocating the female athlete as far as working with basketball athletes, or am I going in the wrong direction?
That's the right direction, but there's more, right? So I think that all young people need to learn that we live in a global society. As I mentioned, I was in Toronto, and there are some global opportunities that young people need to be abreast to. I think that it does us half the service to only speak to young women and not young men. Young men need to see women as leaders, and young women also
yes.
So I'm here for all of them.
So I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I want to jump to a scenario and then we'll get back on course.
Okay.
So I want you to speak to the young man now, the young 13 or 14, maybe even 15-year-old kid.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say this kid, you know, he might be a part of a group. They might be teasing young women. You've heard of body shaming, you know, kids expressing how they feel about a particular young woman, and they're standing in the back. They're not addressing her. And they probably really like the girl and don't know how to talk to her. You being a woman, you know, what would you say to that young man on how to interact with young women from a positive standpoint?
The first thing I would say is, imagine if that was your sister, your cousin, your auntie. Like, would you want her to be treated the way that you're treating this young woman? The second thing is, you can compliment a young woman, without objectifying her body parts, right? So you can give her a compliment about her intellect. You can compliment her on her, just saying you're beautiful is fine if that's what you believe. And getting to know who she is valuable. And this is really key. You have to be able to accept a no. All right? You're going to shoot your shot. Like, shoot your shot as many times as you can, because you never know if you don't shoot your shot. But you have to be able to accept if she's not interested. And that may happen. But if she is interested, then you have the conversation and get to know her. But don't be all aggressive and immature if in fact she's not interested.
Yeah, it's like, for instance, Angela, you're beautiful. Your skin is glowing this morning.
Thank you. It's that vitamin E. Trying to keep this together.
Yeah, I had a situation, and it's different coming from a male, and I think sometimes men need to hear from young women on how to approach young women. For sure.
And not young women. So it goes both ways. So young women, you don't have to be demeaning.
Correct.
Condescending and emasculating to young men if you're not interested. If he says hi to you and you don't let him say like hi, thank you, but I'm not interested. You don't have to like rip guys apart, because it takes a lot of courage to shoot your shot. Nobody wants to be rejected, and no one wants to be made to feel, horrible for
and in today's society it's tougher because I think that's where the smartphone ruined us all, because it eliminates that face-to-face interaction, and everybody can hide behind text or sending pictures. It can just get out of hand. But nevertheless, I don't want to digress. I know you help females with the college recruiting process. talk to us about that. I mean, we discussed this in prior conversations, but I wanted to get into some details on one of our first bullet points, the college recruiting process.
All right. I coached college basketball for a number of years, and I still work with young athletes. And so I conducted a survey, and I asked 100 parents to fill out the survey about college recruiting, specifically for their daughters who play basketball. Now, some of their concerns are similar across sports, but specifically for basketball, only 20% said they felt very prepared. So that prompted me to really deep dive more and figure out how we can help parents. So there's 5 phases that I've come up with the college recruiting process. The phase 1 is the most important. It is the assessment. It's the assessment. So you need to assess your child's physical well-being. Do they have knee injuries, back injuries? The overuse injuries are expanding exponentially. So
don't get me started on that, but go ahead.
So we have to assess their physical well-being, their emotional well-being. How are they mentally? Can they handle pressure? Do they need tools? Assess their love for the game. This one's key. If your child never asks you to go to the gym, if they never ask to work out, there's a good chance that they don't really want it. So then you get to make that decision if we're going to pay $5,000 for this travel team, or they just going to play local on the little summer league. Your decision, but it has to be based on, like, do they really love it? We have to be honest about that. And then assess their skill level, right? Which is different than love. If you love it, you're going to work, like, you can increase your skill level. So if they have the skills based on how they compete against others, you get a pretty good idea of whether or not it's a legitimate opportunity. So after we've assessed all of that, then you move on to the planning phase, right? So we come up with a plan for physical well-being, emotional well-being, skill level improvement, and what travel team, if that's in fact what they'll do. Then you collect data. So I believe regardless of your kid's skill level, you need to go on unofficial visits. So we're in the data collection phase. Travel, visit schools locally first. All levels, D1, D2, D3, NAA, junior college. You'll be surprised what opportunities exist. Because most kids playing college sports aren't playing Division I. I know those are the ones we see on TV, so it makes it seem like everyone's at that level, but they're not. Most kids are D2 and the other levels. Then you evaluate based on evaluations of 4th phase, based on who your kid is, right? So if you know your child needs to be at a small school because they will get sucked up at a school with 40,000 kids and all these different be influenced in some not so positive ways because there's way more freedom. Then you make that assessment based on what you've seen at the school, not based on what you've heard, based on what you've seen. And then lastly, you make your decision.
One thing I wanted to ask you, let's say you have maybe the young girl's a 4-star athlete.
How many stars do we go up to?
I think in football, they go to 5.
Okay.
So I'm thinking in football.
Like 4 out of 10 or 4 out of 5. Okay.
Yeah. So let's say, okay, I get your point. Let's just say she's a 4-star athlete out of 5 stars. So that's pretty up there. Definitely like mid-major, maybe the local big Power 5 schools is recruiting her. And let's say the parent doesn't really know the talent level of the kid. And you get those parents, sometimes they think that they're better than they are, or they think they might be able to play in the SEC basketball or ACC basketball, but really they should probably be in the MAC playing for Miami of Ohio basketball or something like that there. And no offense against those schools, but when it comes to a physical evaluation and you're working with parents that don't know, how would you explain that to them as far as getting an objective physical assessment of how good their daughter is?
What year is she?
Let's say she's a junior going in to her senior year or sophomore, junior. When that recruiting process starts to hit, maybe get that first letter.
She's a sophomore?
It's just hypothetical.
Sophomore year.
Yes.
It's summer after her sophomore year. She's going into her junior year.
Yes.
Perfect. She needs to go to Alabama's camp Mississippi State's elite camp. She needs to go. I would recommend that she goes to these elite camps to see how she competes against other girls at her level. The other thing is, are these schools actively recruiting her? Actively recruiting means they're in communication with you regularly. Not like you got a letter from the admissions department at the university. Has the coach reached out to your coach? Have they come and watch you play? That's actively recruiting. So oftentimes I may believe that my daughter can play in the SEC or ACC. But if there aren't any SEC or ACC coaches calling, that's a good sign that they don't want her. And that's no knock. That's okay, because she will have plenty of other options. My perspective is, let's give these young people opportunities to continue playing. Only 5% of high school kids keep play. So we're acting like Miami or Ohio isn't good enough.
Right.
But you have to be at USC. Miami of Ohio is still better than like 95% of what high school kids who are playing opportunities they have. So we have to keep it in perspective. It doesn't make it
and this is an interesting question, because I live in the football world, and we be capping. We'll get a letter from the admissions and say we're being recruited, or unofficial visit. Does that happen in your world too?
It does, but that is not a lie. You are being recruited by the university, just not by the department.
Right.
That's true. There are admissions recruiters. It is their job to find prospective students.
Yeah, no, we got some cold characters. It's students and coaches that be involved too.
Right.
So this is real good. I like where our conversation is going. I know the last time we spoke, we were discussing just the female presence in sports.
Mm-hmm.
Could you speak to that for me?
Yes, it's exciting to see so many women on the basketball side, and I'm sure it'll happen in every other sport that's been predominantly dominated by males. It's great to see so many of them. There are at least 9 women who are coaching in the NBA now. I just saw an article that there's a woman who's an assistant coach for the Knicks, so maybe that's now 10. That's huge. The knowledge of the game is there, and it's nice to see the women are being recognized for that.
I think there's a woman on the Spurs staff. Am I correct with that?
Yep, she's been there.
Yes.
She's been there a while. She was one of the trailblazers.
I know the last couple of years, the Oakland Raiders, they've had a woman that's been one of either the head or the assistant to the head strength coach. Mm-hmm. So you do see some women, that are getting into the field, and there's a ton of female strength coaches I know at the Division I, Division II level also. So, what would you say to the young woman in terms of a female presence in sports, being a part of the game after the ball stops bouncing, the crowd goes away, and like just opportunities to stay around the game or sports in general?
I would say be open to roles that you may not have known existed, especially with the way this technology is moving. There'll be so many opportunities. There's a lot of biometric data being collected now. So that's worth the science and technology side of sport. There's everything from marketing to fundraising to sales. There's broadcast. The opportunities are pretty wide open. However, it'll be more competitive as well. Once the floodgates open, everyone's running in.
That's right.
So you have to separate yourself from the rest of the group in some way and show that you really want this, not just because you're a woman, but you want this because, it's important to you to stay around the game.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you, from your lens, when you were younger, let's say, how were you when you started playing basketball or started really liking it? What age were you?
Middle school.
Yeah, so let's go back to like 8th grade. Okay. What female presence did you see then versus today?
Back when I was in 8th grade, I was a huge University of Tennessee fan. And so Pat Summitt, of course, and Shamiqua Holesclaw, Tamika Catching, Samika Randall, I wanted to be like them. And it was great to see them on TV, but then Robin Roberts was on ESPN at the time. So we saw her, which was very rare. She was one of few women who was on, that platform and that stage. And so those women really were motivating for me.
Okay. And then like, what do you see now versus back then? You know, how much more is it, or do you see, you know, from the time you were 13, 14 versus now, as far as like women in the media, women being factors, you know what I mean?
There's significantly more, and there's significantly more platforms as well. So it would be interesting to, I haven't looked at this data, but it would be interesting to see the number of media platforms versus the number of women in the past and today. You know, you have ESPN, ESPN Plus, ESPN2, you know, NBA TV. So you see Candace Parker, Carrie Champion, you see, oh God, I can see her face, LaChina Robinson. Like these women have really put a stamp and been trailblazers.
You have an affinity for helping young athletes gain confidence, and we also discussed time management, how to become better at that as a young athlete, as a student athlete. Let's start with the confidence piece, because I often feel that if you're trying to learn something, if you keep struggling with it, usually it's a confidence thing. You know, talk to us about confidence. Define it, what it is, how do you get it, how do you recover it, you know, your experience with the highs and the lows.
Yeah, so confidence isn't something that is bestowed upon you. Confidence comes from seeing yourself, from experiencing yourself doing something well time and time again. Confidence grows over time. You know, I'm in the gym with young people and they're missing a few shots and they hang their heads and they get all frustrated. But if you just keep track of what you've done, you see that you've made close to 50% of your shots. You know, I literally went through this with a player, and it's like, you have to admit, you're going to miss half of, like, if you're great, you're going to miss 5 out of 10 shots. The average player at the high school level, they're shooting 35, maybe 40%, but still you're missing 6 out of 7 shots. And the question is, what are we aligning our confidence to? Is it only shooting, or is it the defense? Like, what do we have that we bring to this team that makes the team better, that is exceptional? And everyone has something. And so everyone isn't going to be a great shooter. It's not possible, but maybe you're a hell of a defender. And that's what you bring, and your confidence lies in knowing that you're going to lock the other person up. Here's the other thing about confidence that players don't get sometimes. Is just because you work hard doesn't mean you're going to get what you want. You learn that in life. Hard work does not equate to, I get it, but if you don't put in the work, you don't even have a chance. You can't even come close. And so how do we build confidence? The first thing is what happens in between your ears. What are you saying to yourself when things don't go well? That can make or break you. So making sure that you have positive self-talk and that you're honest with what you're bringing to the table, right? The second thing that builds confidence is the crew that you're around, right? You gotta look at the network of people you're hanging with and decide if those people are good for where you wanna be.
Right.
Because people can, you know, they can rip you apart when you say, oh, here's what I wanna accomplish. And opposing them saying, like, here's how you get it, they're the ones who are saying, no, you can't. Like, if you are truly about reaching your potential, you have to be clear that you're going to need certain types of people in your corner. And then the way you rebuild it, you have to remember what you did. In the game-changing assist, I talk about reaching points of victory and like writing that out of how you got there so that you can always go back. Like, I know that I've written multiple books, so I can write another one. But that doesn't mean the first one wasn't hard. That was hard as hell, like, to get it done the first time. But once you've done it, you know that you can always do it.
Yeah. And see, I like what you're talking about, because it always, and I often say this, everything starts with self-talk.
Absolutely.
How you speak to yourself, the things that you say to yourself, is it out of love, or are you constantly berating, belittling yourself? Sure. And usually that starts because you let other people do it. Mm-hmm. So you got to get away from certain people, like you said.
We do, but here's the deal. You don't get away from people because they're honest with you, right? True. So it's like, hey, if you know you need to get in better shape, you can't say somebody's, hey, if a friend friend tells you like, go work out, you can't say they're hating and they don't want you to live your best life. No, like your health matters. So your friends should be able to tell you that. You don't run away from the truth. I think sometimes we think positive self-talk is all about like rainbows and butterflies. No, it's about saying, I haven't worked hard enough today. All right, let me work. I'm not going to beat myself up about it, but here's my truth based on what I say I want.
Yeah, and the other piece, like you said, you got to be able to see yourself doing it, see yourself being a great student, see yourself being an all-star, at the Florida State or the Tennessee camp, what that looks like, being in that gym that you done seen, probably several hundred times on TV, watching games and things of that sort. So this is really good. Y'all have to listen to Angela. Do people call you Angela or is it Angie?
I have a few different nicknames. Angela, Angie, my college teammates used to call me G.
Okay.
That's when, that's
all right.
when you know.
That's when you know.
Call you G.
You step on the court.
That's it.
Yep. So we're listening to Angie G Lewis. So we've been popping corn here today, y'all, talking about the college recruiting process, the female presence in sports, how to gain your confidence. And as we get into the fourth quarter, I want you to talk to the young person, the young female, even the young male athlete on how to better manage their time in this society with the gadgets that we have and so many distractions.
I think cell phones are amazing. We have more computing power in our hands than the computers we had growing up.
Yes.
So
I didn't have one.
No. Yeah, neither. The computers that I saw growing up. So the first thing with time management is really about prioritizing what's important to you and what you have to get done. What I used to do, this is what we're in mid-November. So what I would do that was really effective is I would write down all of the assignments that I had during the semester. You get your syllabi for all your classes. Occasionally there's like pop quizzes and things, but by and large, when you're in high school, college, you know what's coming. The dates are pretty set. So I would write all those down. And then the next step is to write down all of your games and practices in the same, like on the same calendar, right? So you can see what you have coming up. So let's say you have a game on Thursday night, but a big test on Friday. You're not going to have as much time to study, then you can plan backwards. We used to write them out in planners. I know most people are using their phones these days. However, you can set reminders on a Sunday to look at your week so you can see what you have coming up. What I hear from young athletes often, they're just like surprised that they didn't know that they have something on the horizon. So that's the first piece. The second thing is, if this is not your strength, if organizing isn't your strength, and you know if it is or if it's not, go ask for help. Because it's not worth the potential stress of being unorganized for you to miss out on opportunities or to do well. It's not worth it. So that's the other thing I would say is just plan ahead. That's really, and if you're not a good planner and you know you're not a good planner, talk to a teacher, a coach, a teammate, somebody like freshman year, so that you can make sure that you have those. It's a skill, some people get it naturally, others have to work at it and need an accountability partner, but you can develop the skill of time management and organization. And then sometimes you just got to turn your phone off.
That's true.
All the way off. Mute the notifications in maybe a few hours.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% because I think that most athletes, they don't realize the kind of stress that they're under and the kind of pressure. And stress is those things that take up your time and energy. Classes take up time. Studying takes up time. Going to study groups. You have to do it. Then you have to go to practice. And then you have to watch film. That's stress. And then if you add the social side to it or the peer pressures of hanging out, with your friends or whatever, that's more stress. You got to compartmentalize. But then the other half of it is pressure. You have outcomes. There has to be positive outcomes on the court, in games, in practice. And then you have to have the outcome of grades. So you got to know the difference between stress and pressure. We talk about them, as if they're the same, but they're actually not. Pressure involves an outcome and you're there to achieve an outcome, and that's your degree. You know, everything else will happen, but you definitely have to handle your business in the classroom. Before we close out, Angela, tell my audience where they can reach you at, where your books are, your website, social media outlets. Just let us have it. I'm a self promoter, but this is a platform for everybody to come on. And I really want, when I invite you on, I want you to share all of your information. So just be detailed with it. And you might have to talk a little slower so they can, if you got that Angie XXS, whatever on Instagram, I tell kids, you get rid of it and just use your name. They kill me with this stuff, and especially having a foul language part in there. You know, I ain't even gonna get started on some of my kids. But go ahead, tell us where we can find you at.
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter, @Lewis_speaks. @Lewis_speaks, Instagram and Twitter. My website is angelarlewis.com. So you can find out more information about my books, invite me to speak to your group. You know, I speak about everything from communicating effectively, diversity globally, leadership for young athletes, and of course to young women, and the college recruiting process. So we have, Black History Month coming up, Women's History Month, graduation. So I would love to be a part of those events. And on Facebook, just Angela Lewis. So hit me up. We'd love to chat with you more.